The National Institute of Standards and Technology has just released their final investigation as to the reasons for the collapse of the Champlain Tower in Surfside, Florida, that occurred in 5 years ago in 2021. This was a true tragedy where 98 people lost their lives because of the sudden collapse of this condominium tower. The NIST's report had indicated that there were imminent signs of danger just 3 weeks or so before the collapse of the building, likening it to a domino effect of several things. But there were apparent issues such as doors and windows popping out of their containment because of the pressure that was on this building. But these issues and this tragedy can be very instructive to really any organization in applying risk factors. But I'd say in particular, in this case, here's a nonprofit, a condominium association, where it resulted in this tragedy of epic proportion. Let me explain why. The design and construction flaws were rampant. Rampant cost cutting in terms of the construction of this building, the lack of waterproofing in an area of the country where there's a heavy amount of precipitation, too little concrete cover, building codes were lax and not adhered to. There were long rust-colored cracks in the garage area, which were signs of true damage, and corrosion to this building. There were smaller rebar that was used for the slabs themselves. So this cost cutting was rampant in terms of the building of this tower. But also deferred maintenance is an issue, which is another risk factor. There were $16 million of maintenance improvements that were identified over a fairly long period of time. But unfortunately, there was a stalemate. And so the economic pressure, which is another risk factor, was felt by the residents of the building, by the condominium association. On one hand, you had, call it the older residents, who were not going to be there that much longer, who didn't want to spend the $16 million to incur the assessment to make this fix. But there were younger, call it, tenants, condominium owners, who were very in favor of it. But unfortunately, this stalemate led to inaction. And while the issues were identified with these $16 million of improvements, nothing occurred. So the economic pressure was great. But not following procedures, the engineering studies were evaluating this building over the years, but they were really ignored. There were communications failures. The local government, the engineering studies, the condominium board, the residents themselves, there was really a communication failure among them to reach some consensus. The arrogance, unfortunately, is very clear too, is that those residents who were not in favor of the $16 million of repairs, again, that were identified over years, were not in favor of doing that. And that arrogance ultimately led to their doom, unfortunately. And the political agendas were probably great. What they know is that the people who were involved in building this building 40-some years ago and those who were involved in city government are no longer around. And so they couldn't be interviewed in terms of this project or this investigation. But it's pretty clear that there were political agendas back then that ultimately led to this defective structure. So the risk factors are very apparent in this tragedy. And I would say, as a nonprofit, regardless of what you are, you should apply these factors to your business, or to your nonprofit operation, and determine where your risks are. To find out more about ERM, check out ermexchange.com.